There's a moment that no one really prepares you for. A moment after you win. You've worked for years, the sleepless nights, the sacrifices, the doubt. You've built something from nothing. And one day, you finally reach the goal you once thought was impossible. You expect joy, relief, freedom. But what you actually feel is silence, a kind of silence that echoes inside you. Because when the noise of the chase stops, you suddenly realize you don't know who you are without it. People don't talk enough about what happens after success. We talk endlessly about motivation, hustle, ambition, but rarely about the strange emptiness that comes when you finally get what you've been chasing. I've met founders who sold their companies for millions and couldn't get out of bed the next week. I've seen executives who reached the top only to feel more lost than ever before. And I felt it myself, that quiet, almost shameful feeling. I should be happy, so why do I feel nothing? You see, the human mind is built for pursuit, not possession. We're wired to chase, to imagine, to desire, to strive. That's what kept our ancestors alive. It's the same instinct that drives entrepreneurs today. The thrill of creation, the challenge of uncertainty, the deep, burning belief that I can build something better. But when we finally catch what we're chasing, the house, the company, the recognition, our brain doesn't celebrate for long. Dopamine, the chemical of motivation, is released in anticipation, not in achievement. That's why the high of success fades so fast. It's not broken, it's just biology. So you reach the top, and suddenly the climb is over. No more next big thing. No more urgent mission. And that's when many entrepreneurs start to spiral, quietly. They don't talk about it on LinkedIn or at networking events. But in the quiet of night, they feel it. The weight of meaninglessness. Because for so long, their identity has been built on progress. On being the one who moves forward. On being someone in motion. When motion stops, identity cracks. We confuse achievement with purpose. We think that if we just achieve enough, we'll finally feel complete. But purpose isn't a trophy. It's a direction. It's something you live with, not something you win. That's why success can feel so hollow. It satisfies the ego, but not the soul. It fills the schedule, but empties the heart. A few years ago, I interviewed a founder who had just sold his company for $12 million. He said, "The morning after the deal closed, I woke up and felt flat. Everyone congratulated me, but I just wanted to disappear. For years, I thought this day would mean freedom. Instead, it felt like I had lost the only version of myself I knew." He didn't need more money. He needed meaning. And that's the paradox of ambition. The same drive that pushes us forward can also trap us if we don't learn when to stop running. When you start your journey, whether it's building a business, a career, or even a dream, you tell yourself a story. If I can just reach this point, then I'll be happy. That story gives you energy. It helps you push through exhaustion, failure, and fear. But the story also builds a cage, because it tells you that happiness is there, not here. And so you keep running, one goal after another, chasing peace while creating chaos. Until one day you stop and realize you've built a life that looks perfect from the outside, but feels strangely empty on the inside. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation, our tendency to return to a baseline of happiness, no matter what we achieve. That's why the first big client, the new office, a viral post, all feel amazing for a few days, and then fade. Our mind adjusts. The new normal becomes ordinary. And soon we crave the next hit of progress, the next win that will make us feel alive again. Maybe you felt it too. That strange guilt of not feeling grateful enough. You look at what you have, the job, the income, the respect, and still something feels missing. You scroll through others' success stories, wondering, maybe I'm just not there yet. Maybe I need to achieve more. But deep down, no amount of more will fill the silence within. Because the silence isn't failure. It's your mind's way of asking a deeper question. Who are you when you're not chasing something? That's a terrifying question for many people in business. We've built our worth on performance. Our validation comes from results, and our identity is glued to progress. Take away the next project, the next milestone, and what's left? That's when you realize that your biggest battle isn't with the market. It's with yourself. Success doesn't make us happy because we've been chasing it for the wrong reason. We wanted to prove something to the world, to our family, to ourselves, to show that we're not ordinary, to justify our sacrifices, to silence the voice that whispers, "You're not enough." But that voice doesn't go away when you win. It just changes form. It says, "You need to win again." And so the chase continues. In the end, many entrepreneurs live in a constant state of quiet anxiety, not because they don't succeed, but because they can't stop. The world calls it drive, but sometimes it's just fear in disguise. Fear of standing still, fear of being ordinary, fear of facing the truth, that we've mistaken busyness for meaning. But here's the good news. Awareness is the first step to freedom. The moment you can name what's happening, that this emptiness is not failure, but transition, you start to take back control. Because now, you're no longer reacting to the silence. You're listening to it. That silence is not empty. It's full of information about what truly matters to you, about who you've become, and about the kind of life you actually want to live next. Maybe success isn't supposed to make us happy. Maybe its purpose is to expose what happiness really is and what it isn't. Success removes excuses. It takes away the illusion that once I get there, I'll be fine. And in that moment, when there's nowhere left to run, you finally have the chance to meet yourself. Not the achiever, not the entrepreneur, not the brand, just you. So if you've been chasing something, a goal, a title, a version of yourself you think will make you whole, take a moment to pause. Look around, feel where you are, and ask yourself, honestly, if nothing changed from this point forward, could I still be at peace? If the answer is no, that's okay. It just means your definition of success isn't finished yet. And that's what this series is about, understanding what truly drives us, what truly scares us, and how to build a business and a life that don't destroy each other. In the next chapter, we'll talk about where it all begins, the psychology of motivation and the illusions that shape every entrepreneur's first step. Because before we can understand the emptiness after success, we need to understand the fire that starts it all. Every journey begins with a spark, a quiet moment when something inside you whispers, there has to be more than this. Maybe it happens at 2 a.m., when you're staring at the ceiling, wondering why your life feels like a script you didn't write. Or maybe it's a Monday morning, when you realize you can't remember the last time you felt truly alive at work. Whatever the moment is, it hits you. A mix of excitement and fear. A desire to break free. To build something of your own. To take control. And that's where the story begins. Not with a business plan, not with capital, but with a psychological rebellion. A belief that you can change your world by sheer will. That belief is powerful. It's what drives people to leave stable jobs, to risk comfort for chaos, to trade security for possibility. And yet, hidden inside that belief is one of the biggest illusions in entrepreneurship, the illusion of control. When you first start something, it feels like the world finally makes sense. You tell yourself, if I work hard enough, if I'm smart enough, if I plan everything perfectly, I can make it happen. You feel alive, focused, in charge. The world seems open and responsive to your energy. And it's true. In the beginning, that feeling is essential. Without it, no one would ever start. But the truth is, you're not actually in control. You're simply inspired. Psychologists call this the illusion of control. our tendency to overestimate how much power we have over outcomes that are mostly random. It's the same illusion that makes gamblers think they can feel when the dice will roll their way, or why we believe that checking our emails faster somehow changes the world. In business, it shows up as overconfidence. We convince ourselves that success is just a matter of effort, that we can predict and shape the market, that our vision alone can bend reality. It's not arrogance, it's survival. When you're standing at the edge of uncertainty, the illusion of control gives you the courage to take the first step. I remember a young entrepreneur I once met. He had just quit his job at a tech firm to build a startup. He told me, "I finally feel free. I'm done answering to anyone else." I asked him what his plan was. He said, "Simple. I'll work harder than everyone." There was a light in his eyes, that unmistakable fire of someone at the start of their journey. I didn't have the heart to tell him that freedom, in business, often means trading one kind of master for another, from a boss to uncertainty itself. Because soon, the illusion of control meets reality, and reality doesn't play by your rules. In the first year, things almost never go as planned. The market changes, partners leave, customers don't behave the way you expect. Your perfect strategy starts to crumble, not because you failed, but because life is more chaotic than any spreadsheet can capture. That's when doubt starts whispering, "Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I made a mistake." But here's the paradox. That same uncertainty is what gives business its beauty. The chaos is not the enemy. It's the canvas. When you first start, you think you're building a company. But in reality, the company is building you. Every failure reshapes you. Every risk stretches your limits. Every setback forces you to see what truly drives you. And slowly, you begin to realize that the illusion of control was never about controlling outcomes. It was about controlling your reaction to them. So many people get stuck chasing control. They want certainty, guarantees, a map. But business, like life, doesn't work that way. It's less like driving a car, and more like surfing a wave. You can't control the ocean. You can only learn how to move with it, to balance between chaos and choice. That's what true control feels like. Not domination, but adaptation. Let's talk about motivation, the beautiful lie that starts it all. At the beginning, motivation feels infinite. You wake up early. You work till midnight. You tell yourself, "This is what passion feels like." But passion is tricky. It burns bright, and it burns fast. It's not meant to last forever. It's meant to get you started. What sustains you later isn't motivation. It's discipline and meaning and acceptance. Yet most people quit before they ever reach that stage, because when motivation fades, they think something's wrong, but nothing's wrong. You're just moving from illusion to awareness. In psychology, there's a concept called the over-justification effect. It means when you start doing something you love for external rewards, like money or validation, you slowly lose your intrinsic motivation. That's why many entrepreneurs, once they turn their passion into a business, start to feel empty. What once felt like play becomes pressure. The thing that gave them joy becomes the thing that drains them. Because now, it's no longer about doing. It's about winning. So many people say they want to start a business for freedom. But deep down, what they really want is control over their time, their choices, their identity. And control feels good at first, until it becomes another form of prison. Imagine this, a 2D animated character standing before a mountain of glowing puzzle pieces, each piece representing a plan, a goal, a dream. They reach up, determined to climb. But as they go higher, the puzzle shifts, the pieces move. The mountain reshapes itself. That's entrepreneurship. You never conquer it. You learn to dance with it. And if you can let go of the need to control every piece, you start to see something beautiful, that the climb itself is the reward. Control gives us comfort, but surrender gives us wisdom. When you stop trying to force life to match your expectations, you make space for creativity to emerge. You start noticing patterns, ideas, and opportunities that control would have blinded you to. And that's when your business stops being a fight and starts becoming a flow. There's a quiet truth at the beginning of every entrepreneurial journey. You think you're chasing success, but what you're really chasing is a sense of agency. You want to feel that your actions matter, that your life is your own design, that you can shape something from the chaos, and you can. But it starts with letting go of perfection, of control, of the illusion that you know how the story ends. Maybe that's the lesson hidden in the beginning. That control is not the goal. It's just the training wheels of courage. Without the illusion, you might never start. But without letting go of it, you'll never grow. So don't curse the chaos. Learn from it. Let it humble you, refine you, stretch you. Because every entrepreneur who survives long enough realizes the same thing. That success isn't about bending the world to your will. It's about learning how to move gracefully within it. So if you're at the start of something right now, if you're dreaming of leaving your job, building your idea, chasing your freedom, remember this. You don't need total control. You need curiosity. You need resilience. You need the willingness to walk forward even when the map is blurry. Because that's where the magic happens. Not when you have all the answers, but when you're brave enough to keep asking the questions. The illusion of control is what starts the journey. The acceptance of uncertainty is what keeps it going. And someday, when you look back, you'll realize that the most meaningful moments weren't the ones you planned. They were the ones that surprised you. The next we'll talk about what happens when that illusion meets its first real enemy, fear. The fear of failure, the fear of not being enough, the fear that stops dreams in their tracks. Because before you can master success, you have to understand the psychology of fear. When the illusion of control fades, something else takes its place, silence. And inside that silence, fear. Not the kind of fear you feel before a presentation or a big decision. This one lives deeper. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It waits for the moment when the noise dies down and you're alone with your thoughts. That's when it asks, what if I fail? What if I'm not who I think I am? What if all of this was a mistake? At the beginning, you think fear is your enemy. You try to fight it, hide it, overcome it. But fear is not the villain. It's the signal. It's your mind's way of saying, you're stepping into territory that matters. Because the more something matters to you, the more fear you'll feel around it. It's the shadow of importance. When you build a business, when you take that leap, you aren't just risking money or time. You're risking your identity. Your sense of worth becomes tied to whether the world says yes or no, and every rejection feels personal. Every setback feels like proof that maybe, deep down, you were never meant to make it. There's a strange thing about entrepreneurs. They can face massive external risks, economic downturns, competition, chaos. But the thing that truly breaks them is internal, the quiet terror of being seen as a failure. Psychologists call it ego involvement. It's when our self-worth fuses with our results. When failure stops being something that happens to us and becomes something that happens inside us. You can see it in subtle ways. The founder who can't delegate because no one can do it as well. The manager who keeps moving the goalpost higher every time they achieve something. The freelancer who can't rest because resting feels like falling behind. Underneath all of it is the same fear. If I stop proving myself, I disappear. Fear doesn't just paralyze. It disguises itself as productivity. You tell yourself you're just being thorough, just being cautious, just working harder. But sometimes you're just afraid to face the possibility of failing, so you bury yourself in motion, hoping speed will drown out doubt. Here's the truth that every entrepreneur eventually learns. You will fail. Not once, Not twice, many times. And it will hurt, not because of what you lose, but because of what it reveals. Failure exposes the parts of you that were built on illusion. The parts that believed, if I succeed, I'll finally be enough. And when those crumble, you meet yourself. Raw, unfiltered, human. Let me tell you something important. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the proof that you're playing the game. Every person who has built something meaningful has failed more times than they've succeeded. But what sets them apart is not the absence of fear. It's their relationship with it. They stop asking, how do I get rid of fear? And start asking, how can I move with fear? There's a powerful idea for an acceptance and commitment therapy. It says, you can't control your thoughts or emotions, but you can control what you do with them. That's the art of entrepreneurship. You can't erase fear, but you can carry it with you, like a small stone in your pocket, reminding you that you're alive, that you're growing. Fear sharpens your awareness. It humbles your ego. It forces you to question what truly matters. If you let it, fear becomes your teacher. Because beneath every fear lies a truth you haven't accepted yet. The fear of failure hides the truth about identity. The fear of rejection hides the truth about belonging. The fear of losing control hides the truth about surrender. Each one invites you to go deeper. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the 2D animated figure walking across a tightrope, a briefcase in hand, wind swirling below, their reflection faintly visible in the mist. That's what entrepreneurship feels like. A balancing act between vision and vulnerability. One wrong move, and everything could fall apart. And yet, that's what makes every step sacred. Every step is a choice, to trust yourself even when the ground feels thin. There's a beautiful paradox here. You only lose your fear of failure when you stop measuring your worth by success. Because once you realize that failure doesn't define who you are, it just defines what you've tried, you become unstoppable. Not fearless, but fear-literate. You understand fear, you can listen to it, but you don't let it drive. Every entrepreneur reaches a moment when they ask, why does this hurt so much? It's because building something meaningful requires letting go of the illusion that you are invincible. You are not. You're human. You will fail. You will doubt. You will question your worth. And that's not weakness. That's growth. Because you can't transform what you refuse to feel. So if you're scared right now, that's good. It means you care. It means you're stretching beyond comfort. It means you're alive. Don't numb it. Don't rush it. Sit with it. Let fear be part of the story, not the author. As you learn to live with fear, something interesting happens. It stops controlling you and starts guiding you. You begin to realize that the goal isn't to avoid failure. It's to fail well, to fall, learn, and rise a little wiser each time. That's the quiet power behind resilience. Not bravado, not optimism, but the deep knowing that failure is not the end. It's the beginning of understanding. And yet, for many people, fear doesn't make them stop. It does something more subtle. It makes them run faster. They start chasing achievements, collecting trophies, building empires, trying to prove over and over again that they're not afraid anymore. But fear doesn't disappear through victory. It hides behind it. And before you know it, achievement becomes addiction. That's where we go next. To the part of the journey where success stops being freedom and starts becoming a trap. Because the same fear that once held you back can quietly evolve into something even more dangerous, the addiction to achievement. Fear never truly disappears. It simply changes its disguise. For many entrepreneurs, it transforms into something far more seductive, achievement. At first glance, success seems like the antidote to fear. Each win, each milestone, each dollar earned feels like proof that you're safe, that you're worthy, that you're finally in control. But here's the quiet truth. Success, when driven by fear, doesn't free you. It enslaves you. You start chasing results the way addicts chase a high. The first win feels euphoric. The second is satisfying. By the 10th, you barely feel anything at all. What once felt like fulfillment turns into compulsion. You're not celebrating anymore. You're maintaining the illusion of progress. There's a scene I often imagine, our 2D animated character, running endlessly on a glowing hamster wheel shaped like a dollar sign. Around them, clocks spin, lights flicker, and yet, they're not moving anywhere. That's what the addiction to achievement looks like. Movement without meaning. Noise without music. Ambition without peace. Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill. It's the tendency for humans to quickly return to a baseline level of happiness, no matter how much success they achieve. You land the big client, you buy the car, you hit the target, and for a brief moment, you feel unstoppable. Then the high fades, and suddenly you're restless again, empty again, searching for the next fix. It's not greed, it's biology. Your brain gets used to the dopamine of doing well, and when it fades, it craves more. The cruel irony is that achievement addiction looks like discipline from the outside. To others, you look driven, focused, successful. But inside, you're exhausted. You can't stop, because if you slow down, you'll have to feel. And if you feel, you'll have to face the truth you've been running from. That maybe your worth has never truly belonged to your work. I once met a man who sold his startup for millions. Everyone called him a success story. But 2 months later, he confessed to me, "I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what to do when I wake up. I don't know how to exist without a goal." That's the hidden cost of chasing achievement without awareness. You forget how to simply be. You lose the ability to rest, to breathe, to find joy in the ordinary. Because somewhere along the way, you replaced living with achieving. And it's not your fault. Our culture rewards motion, not meaning. We celebrate the grind, the hustle, a constant push for more. But no one tells you that constant striving has a side effect. It numbs your capacity for wonder. You stop noticing sunsets. You skip dinners with friends. You tell yourself it's temporary. Just one more quarter, one more launch, one more goal. But that one more never ends. Because the addiction doesn't want completion. It wants continuation. Achievement becomes the modern drug. Socially acceptable, highly praised, but quietly destructive. It gives you everything, except peace. So what happens when you stop? When the success doesn't fill you anymore? When you realize that all your trophies can't silence the voice that says, "It's still not enough"? Most people panic. They double down, set bigger goals, expand faster, chase harder. But a rare few, pause. And in that pause, something sacred begins to happen. They start to hear the truth beneath the noise. They realize that the addiction to achievement was never about success itself. It was about safety. Achievement became their shield against fear, their proof of worth, their way of saying, "I'm doing fine." But deep down, they weren't fine. They were lonely, disconnected, tired of pretending. The addiction to achievement is really a search for belonging, a desperate attempt to earn love through performance. From childhood, we're taught that we matter when we do well. Good grades, praise, applause. So when we grow up, we chase the same validation through our work. But love that must be earned isn't love. It's transaction. And it will never be enough. You can see it in the eyes of so many high achievers, that quiet emptiness. They've built everything they were told would make them happy, and yet the silence inside only grows louder. Because success can fill your schedule, but it can't fill your soul. There's a point in every entrepreneur's journey when they have to face the truth. They are no longer building a business. They are building an identity. And that identity depends on staying on top. So they keep running, keep producing, keep trying to outdo their own reflection. But you can't outwork emptiness. You can only face it. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop climbing. To look around and ask, what am I really chasing? Who am I doing this for? Because behind every addiction is a wound, and behind every wound, a longing. A longing to be seen, to be safe, to be enough. So maybe the path forward isn't about achieving more, but learning how to receive, to let life come to you instead of forcing it to obey. Because when you stop chasing validation, you make space for connection. You make space for authenticity. And for the first time in a long time, you might actually feel human again. The moment you realize that achievement doesn't define you is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying, because you lose your armor. You have to face yourself without titles or trophies. Liberating, because you finally see that you were never incomplete to begin with. You are always enough. You just forgot. And yet, this realization doesn't come without pain. Because when the addiction fades, what's left is often silence. A silence that asks, if I'm not my achievements, then who am I? That question, that loneliness, is the next door you must walk through. Because after the addiction fades, what you're left with is yourself. And meeting yourself again is the most difficult and the most beautiful part of the journey. So far, we've explored the spark that starts the journey, the illusion of control that fuels it, the fear that shadows it, and the addiction that hides behind success. But underneath all of that, there's one more truth we can't ignore. A truth that lives in the spaces between the wins and losses. The loneliness of the entrepreneur. Because even surrounded by people, you can still feel unseen. Even at the top, you can still feel alone. And that's where we go next. In the next part, we'll step into the quiet room behind achievement, the place where identity cracks, and the soul asks its hardest question. Who am I beyond the business? Silence. It's strange how it feels heavier the higher you climb. You spend years surrounded by people, clients, partners, investors, employees, yet somehow, the closer you get to success, the more alone you become. Because nobody tells you that leadership can be the loneliest place in the world. In the beginning, loneliness feels like a small price to pay. You tell yourself it's just part of the process. You trade weekends for progress, friends for focus, sleep for growth. And for a while, the trade feels worth it. You build something out of nothing. You prove that you can. But over time, the silence grows louder. The messages slow down. The phone stops ringing unless someone needs something. You start realizing that people don't talk to you. They talk through you to the version of you that represents their interests. You become a function, not a person. Entrepreneurs rarely talk about loneliness because loneliness feels like weakness. And weakness in business feels like failure. So you hide it. You smile in meetings. You post achievements. You pretend to be fine. But at night, when the screens go dark and the emails stop, you feel the quiet ache of invisibility. The strange paradox of being seen by everyone, yet known by no one. There's a moment, usually sometime between midnight and 2 a.m., when your mind finally slows down just enough to whisper, who am I, really? Not the CEO, not the founder, not the strategist or creator or builder, just me. And the answer doesn't come, because you've spent so long becoming someone that you've forgotten how to be anyone else. Identity is a strange thing. We think we build it through our work, but often our work builds it for us. You become fused with the thing you've made. Your business becomes your mirror. When it grows, you feel worthy. When it struggles, you feel broken. You no longer have emotions. You have metrics. Your happiness becomes a KPI. The danger of success isn't failure, it's identification. When your identity fuses with your achievement, you stop existing outside of what you do. And that's when loneliness transforms from solitude into exile. You are surrounded by people, but disconnected from yourself. There's a particular kind of loneliness that only those who carry responsibility understand. The loneliness of being the one who must always have answers. Even when you're lost. Even when you're scared. Even when you want to give up. You can't show it. You can't say it. Because if you do, people might lose faith. So you wear the armor. You lead the meeting. You deliver the speech. And inside, you quietly break. This loneliness is not the absence of people. It's the absence of understanding. When you no longer know how to explain what you feel, you stop trying. And slowly, you disappear behind your own success story. People still see your name, your brand, your face, but they no longer see you. I remember a founder once told me, "Every time my company grew, my circle shrank." It's true. Success isolates. Not because others reject you, but because you start rejecting parts of yourself that don't fit the story you've built. The insecure part, the tired part, the human part. You edit yourself down to the version the world admires. And soon, you forget what the unedited version even looked like. In this stage, many entrepreneurs face what psychologists call identity diffusion. It's when the boundaries between you and your work blur. Your sense of self becomes conditional. If the business thrives, you feel alive. If it falters, you vanish. This isn't just emotional, it's neurological. The same brain circuits that form attachment in relationships are activated when you attach to your business. You don't just own your company, you bond with it. So when it suffers, it feels like heartbreak. When it ends, it feels like grief. And yet, hidden beneath that grief is an invitation, a chance to rediscover who you are without the titles, without the trophies. Because loneliness, at its deepest level, isn't just a lack of others. It's the distance between who you are and who you think you need to be. When you start to close that distance, something shifts. You stop performing. You start listening. You begin to notice the small, quiet parts of you that never cared about scaling or status, the parts that just wanted meaning, the parts that remember what joy felt like before it was monetized. It's easy to forget that entrepreneurship, at its heart, is an act of creation. And creation is born from presence, not pressure. When you reconnect with presence, with the sheer wonder of making something real from nothing, you begin to return to yourself. The loneliness doesn't vanish, but it softens. It transforms from isolation into introspection, from emptiness into space. That's when you begin to see that the identity you built, the one tied to success, was never the full story. You are not just the strategist or the achiever. You are also the dreamer, the child, the curious one who started all this not for glory, but for freedom. And freedom doesn't come from becoming more. It comes from remembering less, unlearning the layers that keep you from being whole. You can see this realization dawn in people's eyes sometimes. A quiet surrender, not defeat, acceptance. They stop fighting for constant validation. They stop needing to be understood by everyone. And in that surrender, they finally meet themselves again. It's the moment when loneliness becomes solitude, not emptiness, but clarity. The identity crisis, then, is not a breakdown. It's an awakening. It's your mind's way of saying, you've built enough outside. Now build inside. It's the invitation to rebuild not your company, but your sense of self. Because the truth is, the person behind the business is the real product. If that person is disconnected, no amount of growth will fill the void. You don't overcome loneliness by surrounding yourself with people. You overcome it by reconnecting with your authenticity. You start having conversations without agenda. You let people see your uncertainty. You let yourself be human again. And in doing so, you realize that what you were searching for was never more. It was real. Maybe that's the paradox of the entrepreneurial mind. We spend our lives trying to build something lasting, Yet the most lasting thing we can build is ourselves. Not the version that wins, but the version that feels, that allows failure, rest, imperfection. Because connection only begins where performance ends. So if you're listening to this, and you feel that familiar ache, that quiet, hollow loneliness that success can't fix, know this: you are not broken. You are simply being called back to yourself. The identity crisis is not punishment. It's permission. Permission to be more than what you do. Permission to be someone again. And maybe that's where true freedom begins. When you can look at everything you've built, smile and say, "This is beautiful. But it's not all of me." Because the moment you remember that, loneliness loses its grip, and what remains is peace. In the next and final chapter, we'll explore what happens after the breaking point. When you stop chasing, stop pretending, and start living from alignment. We'll talk about what it means to build not from fear or ambition, but from clarity, from truth, from love. Because after loneliness comes light. After identity comes authenticity. And that is where the entrepreneur becomes whole again. After the storm comes stillness. After the climb comes the plateau. After fear, after addiction, after loneliness, there is a moment when you finally breathe. A deep, quiet breath. Not the kind taken to survive, but the kind that makes you feel alive. This is the beginning of healing. Healing doesn't happen all at once. It's not a switch you flip. It's a slow process of noticing. A gentle unraveling of all the layers you built to protect yourself. You begin by noticing what you've been chasing. Success, control, validation. And then, slowly, you start asking, what if I don't need these things to be enough? That question, simple, almost fragile, is the doorway to freedom. Redefining success begins with presence. It begins with the awareness that life is happening now. Not in spreadsheets, not in projections, not in next quarter targets. It's in the quiet moments, a sunrise over your office, the laughter of a colleague, the feeling of coffee warming your hands. Success is no longer a trophy. It's the ability to show up fully for the moments that truly matter. Imagine the 2D animated character once again. This time, sitting under a tree at sunrise, closed laptop beside them. The wind gently moves the leaves above. They are still watching the light, breathing without purpose, simply being. This is the visual of healing, the return to self. Redefining success also means redefining control. You realize that you cannot control everything, markets, outcomes, other people. But you can control how you respond. You can choose to act with clarity, with integrity, with care, and that is enough. True mastery is not domination. It is alignment. Alignment with your values, your purpose, your own rhythm. Healing includes forgiving yourself for the times you chased validation, for the moments you equated worth with achievement, for the sleepless nights, the relentless hustle, the quiet panic. Because all of it was part of the journey. All of it was necessary. All of it brought you here, to this quiet clarity. A next step is integration. You take the lessons from fear, addiction, and loneliness and fold them into your life intentionally. Fear becomes guidance, not imprisonment. Ambition becomes motivation, not addiction. Loneliness becomes reflection, not exile. And your identity is no longer tied to outcomes, but to presence. Redefining success is a quiet revolution. It is not about the accolades or the deals. It is about showing up fully in your work, connecting authentically with yourself and others, embracing imperfection, feeling the richness of life beyond metrics. It's the realization that life itself is the ultimate achievement. Healing also teaches gratitude. For every misstep, for every failure, for every night of doubt. Because all of it led you here, to a self that is resilient, aware, and awake. And when you finally see that, you understand. Success was never outside. It was always inside. This is the final lesson for the entrepreneurial mind. Fear is inevitable. Addiction is natural. Loneliness is part of the journey. But through awareness, reflection, and intentional living, you can transform all of it into wisdom, clarity, and peace. The climb, the fall, the chaos, all of it was shaping not just your business, but your soul. So as you step forward from here, remember this. You are not your failures. You are not your achievements. You are not your fears. You are the quiet presence that notices, the awareness that integrates, the soul that heals. And when you lead from that space, everything you build, business, relationships, life, becomes a reflection of your authentic self. The journey does not end here. It continues day by day, moment by moment. But the difference now is that you walk it consciously, with clarity, with courage, with compassion, for yourself and for the world you touch. Because this presence, this alignment, is the true measure of success.